Hey, Adam. Um, Thinking back to the Jacob Truba trade, I don't know if you were one of those who thought, "Whoa, we're losing a real good guy here, but a good player, promising player," and you probably didn't know a ton about Neil Pionk. That trade's not looking bad these days the way Neil's playing. You mind sharing your thoughts, kind of from that day to now? Maybe you didn't. Maybe you learned things about Neil you didn't know.
Yeah, I think I remember when the trade happened. I wasn't super familiar with kind of his game and everything. You only play the East a couple times a year and things like that. But over the last year and a quarter to really get to understand his game, and it's not just a dynamic offensive player. I think last night he shows he's able to go up against these high flying guys and battle hard and really defend well. And I think he's really made some big strides for us over the last couple of years, and especially last year. You come into the season and we have such big holes to fill on the back end, and he kind of seemed to step in and kind of almost take on one of those guys that replace one of those guys we lost on the right side. And he's kind of picked up where he's left off this year. I think he's had a terrific start for us.
We'll go next to Mitchell Clinton from Jets TV. Go ahead, Mitch.
Adam, just curious what the focus is today after obviously a highly eventful game last night where you guys pick up the win. But obviously maybe some things you guys would want to clean up just based on what some of the comments were after the game. Just curious what the focus becomes in the video session and on ice today.
Oh, we just wanted to entertain you guys. No, I think last night, obviously we give up 40, 45 shots and, you give up 5 goals and you still find a way to win. I think there's some positives to take out of that. They're a dynamic team. They're willing to trade chances. They're willing to kind of live and die by that game style. And I think, it's a dangerous game to kind of get into that, playing them with the talent they have. And, I think there's some things that we can clean up to kind of slow down some of their transition speeds, slow down some of their transition offense where, all of a sudden you have the puck in their zone or the puck, close to their zone. And, before you know it, they have a 3-on-2, 4-on-3 kind of thing. So there's certainly some things in that aspect of the game that we'll look at to hopefully clean up. And then, just in the zone, being aware of kind of their guys and what they like to do, especially Connor and Leon. I think, they're able to create so much just, with any time and space they're given, with, the ability to beat guys one-on-one, create some of these 2-on-1. So, it's important that you kind of try and manage that space. You try and manage, their ability to do that. And, if they do beat a guy, they have to go through another guy or another 2 guys and their sticks before they're able to get to the net.
We'll go next to Mike Mcintyre from the Winnipeg Free Press. Go ahead, Mike.
Thanks, Gregor. Thanks, Adam. That game last night did have a little bit of everything. It seemed a lot of end-to-end action, scoring, and some physicality as well. Can you maybe take us through the dropping the gloves with Darnell Nurse, which I imagine is not the most enjoyable thing to do given his size and power, but looked like there was a mutual show of respect between the two of you after it as well.
Yeah, well, I think he's one of those guys that plays real hard for him. And, he battles hard, and just coming off on a line change, and, kind of him and Matty were in a bit of a scrum. So I feel like that's a bit of a mismatch for us. So, I go in there trying to just be peacemaker, and, before we know it, his gloves are off. So, it's part of the game. It's, sometimes it's nice to do if you feel like you get a little more engagement and things like that. And, I think we both respect how each other plays. I know he's a good, honest player. He's playing hard, and, maybe he's trying to, set the tone for his team and, try and, show that they're going to be engaged. And, it's important that we answer that. So, I think it was one of those ones where kind of just heat of the moment it happened, and, it wasn't really anything that kind of spurred it.
We'll go next to Paul Edmonds from Jets Radio. Go ahead, Paulie.
Hey, Adam, we don't talk about this very often, but how much did the long change in the second period affect your inability to get past center and have some changes on the fly there, and it resulted in having you guys in last night?
Yeah, well, I think some of it has to do with the long change. You look at we come off a 2-minute penalty kill where, they're caught in our zone for the full 2 minutes. It's tough to get those guys off. And you generally, sometimes in the second period, you get one good solid shift and you seem to start being able to build some momentum. You're kind of able to outchange the other team, catch some tired legs and things like that. And with that, it comes with their transition game. They move some pucks up real efficiently, and we're able to kind of hold us from being able to make a clean change or generate some chances off that. And then some of it, I think, has to do with us. I think there's some plays where we turn the pucks over, where we're looking for a few things that might not be there, and it kind of feeds into their offense. So if you can kind of clean those things up, you might not necessarily see as much of it tomorrow.
We'll go next to Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Sean.
Hey, Adam, I hope I'm kind of getting your philosophy right. But, talking with you in the past, you've talked about knowing your role and enjoying the role that you play in the NHL and saying points are nice, but, my role is my role. Given, last night you guys get a goal that ends up being really key in a game like that, and the way that your line and you have been able to produce this year, has your mindset towards chipping in offensively changed at all this season, or maybe the expectations of yourself as an offensive player?
Yeah, well, maybe a little bit. I think it's now kind of seen over the last 15 games that there can be a little bit of consistency there. I think getting that chemistry with Mason and Maddie or Copper or whoever else is on the left wing, and trying to be able to chip in at both ends of the rink. I think it's kind of the evolution and growing as a player, just not be so one-dimensional. I think it allows us to get a little more ice time. Chances are you're down in the game and you're chipping in offensively, you're going to be able to be thrown out there and things like that. So it's kind of that expectation that you go out there and you want to perform at both ends of the rink.
We'll go next to Ken Weaver from Sportsnet. Go ahead, Weaver.
Afternoon, Adam. Speaking of that evolution, what have you seen from Mason Appleton in terms of adding that offensive element to his hardworking and kind of tenacious forechecking game?
Yeah, I think he's taken a big step for us this year, and certainly with his speed, it backs off a lot of defenders. He's able to get in on the forecheck and disrupt a lot of things and create some zone time just by simply being able to be there a half step before most guys can. And you look at he was Rookie of the Year in the American Hockey League, and he had real good offensive numbers there. And to come in, it usually doesn't happen overnight. There's usually a process to figuring out who you're going to be in the NHL, figuring out what you're going to do to be successful. And I think he's really starting to do that. He's got some confidence that he's shooting the puck well, and he's creating a lot of chances, and he's kind of using his strengths with his speed and his size and kind of that tenacity to do it.
Just a couple more for Adam. We'll go next to Kelly Moore from CJOB. Go ahead, Kelly.
Hey, Adam, just to go back to the Darnell Nurse confrontation, just the third major so far this year, and even one of the previous two were kind of an obligatory fight when Haley was in the lineup for Ottawa. Should we be surprised because of how many times these teams are playing against each other that there hasn't been more of that kind of confrontation, if you will, or is that maybe still to come when things even ramp up further?
Well, I think I saw a hockey fight stat last night that fighting is actually up this year. So in the first 200 and so games or whatever, but I think it kind of goes team to team. There's some teams that do it more often. There's some teams that don't do it a whole lot. I think kind of the fighting aspect and that chippiness is within games or certain rivalries, and it doesn't necessarily carry over from game to game. But I think as the season goes on, the more you play a team, you might see it a little more often. There might be some bad blood that starts to brew. But I think I've said this before. The points are so valuable right now. We know that just playing in your division, you can't afford to take stupid penalties. You can't afford to just take yourself out of the game just to up the physicality or kind of feel like the obligation that you need to do it. So, it's going to be one of those things that it'll be interesting to see how it plays out throughout the year.
And final question to Carter Brooks from Game On Magazine. Go ahead, Carter.
Hey, Adam. Sticking with the theme of fighting, we've seen in the NFL the last season with players wearing masks after the game when there's closed confrontations, discussions between players, just due to the spread of potential virus transmission. Do you ever consider that in this season so far, considering engaging with a player, coming that close to him, physically being on top of the guy, rolling around, exchanging blows? Does that creep into your mind in the thought of fighting with the potential spread of this virus? You don't know who's carrying it, who might be carrying it at all?
No, and here's why. I think, certainly you're close, and in scrums and things like that, but I don't think the distance is that much different than, say, in a face-off. Our faces are a couple feet apart. The linesman's in there, and I take 15 to 20 of those a game. You got a battle where puck's held on the boards for 10, 15 seconds. You got 4 or 5 guys right there. I think just knowing the protocols we have in place, knowing everyone's getting tested daily, and everyone's hopefully following the rules that have been in place, where we're doing the best we can to minimize our exposures, minimize our risks. And I think that's something we have to be aware of, but it's not something that kind of is going through my head when I'm out there. I think we're trying to be as diligent as we can off the ice, wearing masks, sanitizing our hands even in between periods, and things like that. We know the benches are getting wiped down and things like that. So, it wouldn't be one of those things that I'd necessarily consider. Obviously, there is a certain risk factor anytime you kind of have that close contact, and you're sharing air droplets and things like that. But it's not something that kind of is at the forefront of my mind, especially when we're playing games.